Imagine yourself walking through the streets of Constantinople in the year 1022. The air is thick with the scent of crushed rose petals, smoldering frankincense, and the salty tang of the nearby Marmara Sea. The sun slants golden through the lattice work of covered markets, where merchants call out in a dozen languages: Greek, Arabic, Syriac, their voices blending like the notes of some vast, unhurried symphony. But today, we are not here for the silk traders or the spice merchants. Today, we follow the quietest of artisans, the perfumers, those alchemists of fragrance who transform humble herbs and resins into liquid poetry. Let us step into the shadowed workshop of a perfumer named Elias, a man whose family has practiced this craft for 3 generations. His small stone atelier nestles between a baker's oven and a dyer's vats, its doorway draped with a curtain of lavender stalks to keep out dust and prying eyes. Inside, the space is cool and dim, the only light filtering through alabaster jars of amber oil lining a high shelf. The walls are stained with decades of aromatic spills, streaks of myrrh here, a splash of violet essence there, each mark a silent witness to forgotten recipes. Elias begins his day as all perfumers do, by grinding a pinch of dried iris root against a marble slab. The sound is rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch, as the pale rhizome yields its violet-like aroma. This powder will later be steeped in oil pressed from bitter almonds, a process that takes 40 days under the careful watch of the moon. But for now, there is only the quiet motion of his hand, the whisper of stone on stone, and the growing sweetness in the air. Beyond his workshop, the city stirs. Donkeys clatter over cobblestones bearing sacks of anise from Syria. In the harbor, ships from Alexandria unload cargoes of rare Indian sandalwood, their decks fragrant even before the ropes are tied. And somewhere in the great palace, a eunuch official selects a flask of Elias's finest megalion, a perfume of myrrh, cinnamon, and honey, to anoint the hands of visiting ambassadors. But here, in this moment, there is only the iris root, the marble slab, and the slow, deliberate work of hands that know patience as their greatest tool. Elias's workshop is a kingdom of vessels. On the left wall, rows of glass unguentaria, their long necks slender as heron's legs, hold oils aging in sunlight. To the right, a squat copper still exhales the ghost of yesterday's rose distillation, its curved belly blackened by years of olive wood fires. But the true treasure sits at the center, a table of Proconnesian marble, its surface worn smooth by generations of grinding. Here, every tool has its purpose and its story. Let us examine them slowly, as Elias would. First, the mortarium, a bronze mortar no larger than a drinking cup, its interior scarred by 1,000 encounters with ambergris and myrrh. When struck with its pinewood pestle, it sings a faint tonk-tonk like a distant monastery bell. Beside it rests a curious spoon of mother-of-pearl, used to skim the tears of resin from boiling juniper berries without tainting their purity. Then there are the storage vessels, not crude pottery, but ostrich eggs emptied through pinholes, their shells wax-sealed to preserve oils from light. Elias keeps them nested in cedar shavings, each labeled with tiny charcoal marks only he can read. 2 crosses for liturgical incense, a wavy line for coastal mastic from Chios. The most precious, a flask of saffron infusion from Persia, sleeps wrapped in lamb's wool in a niche behind the still. But the soul of the workshop is its simplest tool, a reed pen and ledger. Its pages, stained purple at the edges from years of spilled wine lees, hold recipes in cipher. Dragon's blood does not mean the mythical creature, but a blend of cinnamon and rare Socotrine aloe. Moon dew is jasmine harvested at midnight when its scent is strongest. Elias will sometimes pause his grinding to add a new note, perhaps observing that this year's lavender blooms lack their usual sweetness, a secret note to future generations. An hour before dawn, when the streets are still blue with mist, Elias knots his leather apron and empties yesterday's copper scales of clinging saffron dust. Today is market day at the Argyropolitan, the silversmith's quarter where Syrian merchants display their fragrant wares on carpets of worn indigo. He counts out milliaresia coins into a pouch, some stamped with Christ's face, others worn smooth by generations of perfumers' fingers. The heaviest goes to Yusuf, the blind incense seller who judges resin quality by rubbing lumps between his thumb and ring finger. "Listen," Yusuf murmurs as he snaps a tear of frankincense. The sound is crisp, like winter ice breaking. Good resin shatters clean, bad bends like old wax. Next comes the honey seller, but not just any honey. Elias waits for the Cretan who stores his combs in fig leaves, their fragrance laced with wild thyme. 2 litra will be stirred into a batch of rhododendron, the rose perfume favored by palace ladies. The bargaining is a slow dance. Elias sniffs the clay jar, frowns, sniffs again. The Cretan crosses his arms. They settle on a price only when the church bells begin their third call to prayer. By mid-morning, Elias's basket holds treasures. A thumb-sized nugget of ambergris, washed ashore near Thessaloniki, a linen bundle of wilted violet flowers, their scent now concentrated by the journey, and, most precious, a lead capsule of Nardus tachys from the Himalayas. This last costs as much as a scribe's monthly wage, but 3 drops will transform a common oil into something worthy of an empress's wrists. Back in the workshop's honeyed darkness, Elias performs his most sacred duty, the transferring of oils into their gestational vessels. This is not hurried work. Each drop of precious nectar must be funneled through lamb's wool filters to catch even the finest sediment. Watch how he tilts the fresh violet infusion, its color the purple of a twilight sky over the golden horn, into a glass arabelos, no larger than a dove's egg. These vessels are no ordinary containers. Some are blown with spiral patterns to track evaporation. Others have inner chambers of pumice stone to slowly oxygenate their contents. But the most mysterious are the ones buried beneath the workshop's floor for a full lunar cycle, sealed with beeswax and stamped with Elias's personal mark, a crescent moon cradling a single drop. Now, observe the ledger. Here, next to a sketch of Sagittarius drawn when the archer ruled the night sky, Elias records today's work. Viola odorata, 4th indiction. Harvested after rain, but before bees stirred. Oil shows green tint, will clarify by Saturn's day. Such notes are more poetry than recipe. Future perfumers will understand that Saturn's day means to wait until the oil loses its grassy sharpness. The true magic happens in silence. As we speak, 13 oils sleep in their alcoves, rose attar dreaming itself sweeter in a north-facing window, sandalwood merging with vanilla in a buried amphora, and, most curious, a flask of seawater from the Bosporus Strait, its briny tang gradually softening around chips of cedar heartwood. On nights when the moon hangs heavy over the Sea of Marmara, Elias walks through his walled garden with a basket of silvered linen. The jasmine vines know him, their star-shaped blossoms unfurling a fraction wider as his shadow passes. This is the hour when flowers speak in scent alone. Watch how he works, left hand cradling the blossom from beneath, right thumb brushing the base just once, there to release the oil glands. The petals must never be crushed, only persuaded. Each flower yields but a single drop of perfume, clinging to Elias's fingertips like celestial dew. By midnight, his basket holds 300 blooms, their combined fragrance so potent it makes the eyelids flutter. Now comes the sacred transfer. In the workshop's lone pool of lamplight, Elias layers blossoms with salt from Cyprus in a wide-mouthed jar, alternating white on white like strata of some fragrant snow. The salt, roasted earlier with orris root, will absorb the flower's essence while stealing none of their purity. By dawn, this will become aspirin, the white gold paste that flavors the finest wedding perfumes. The ledger opened to a page marked with a dried sprig of jasmine. Here, Elias notes, "Moon at perigee, flowers drunk with evening rain. The cat followed me but did not sneeze. Good omen. Superstition and science entwine like these vines. He knows atmospheric pressure affects volatile oils as surely as it swells tides in the Bosporus." On winter mornings, when the frost paints feathers on the workshop shutters, Elias performs his strangest alchemy. From a sack of Aleppo pine cones, each no larger than a thrush's egg, he plucks the resinous scales with bronze tweezers, dropping them into simmering rainwater. Watch how the steam carries the scent upward in lazy spirals, condensing on cold copper pipes as terebinth, the golden syrup that will anchor all his winter incenses. This is slow magic. The first draw tastes sharp as broken twigs, fit only for cleaning tools. The second, collected when the moon enters Capricorn, has the smokiness that cathedral deacons crave for their censers. But the third distillation is kept in a sapphire blue bottle reserved for imperial petitions to the Virgin. Elias tests its quality by drawing a line on his wrist. If the scent lingers until vespers, he nods to the icon of St. Lazarus in the corner. Now, observe the ledger's winter pages, stiff with spilled gum Arabic. Here we find notes like, "Year of the lean harvest. Pine cones from Mount Olympus slope, gathered after north wind, added 2 drops of last year's mastic to compensate." Between the lines live entire ecosystems. The stressed trees that produced richer resin, the hungry winter bees that might have stolen sweetness in milder years. The spice warehouses of Constantinople's pepper quarter never truly sleep. Even at this late hour, lanterns flicker behind thick parchment windows as guards shift sacks of black pepper from Malabar. But Elias comes not for pepper, nor for the cinnamon that stains the very air ruddy brown. He seeks something rarer, green cardamom pods, still clinging to their dried stems like sleeping dragonettes. Watch how the spice merchant, a woman from Kerala with hennaed fingertips, selects a single silver knife from her sash. This blade never touches flesh nor fish. Its sole purpose is to slit cardamom pods under celestial approval. She splits one now. Snick! The sound is crisp as a snapped pine needle. Inside, the black seeds cluster like tiny prophecies, their aroma both citrus and smoke, warmth and frost. Elias breathes deeply. This year's harvest is potent. The seeds stick slightly to the knife's flat, proof of their oily ripeness. The bargaining that follows is a silent dance of gestures. 3 fingers held up, 3 silver millaricia, a shake of the head, then the merchant's counter, tapping the ledger, where last year's price is inked. Beside a sketch of the waning moon, they settle when the harbor bells chime for the changing tide. In his ledger, Elias will later note, cardamom of the winter monsoon, seeds cling like baptismal chrism, paid 2 coins and a vial of last autumn's oak moss oil. The exchange is more than commerce. It is the unspoken pact between those who understand that spices, like dreams, carry the geography of their birth in every fiber. Before dawn's first light stains the workshop's alabaster jars, Elias performs his most guarded ritual. The cardamom seeds, plump from their moonlit unhusking, meet barley flour roasted in a monk's kiln. Watch how he grinds them together with a pestle of bloodstone, the motion as precise as a scribe's pen strokes. Crush, twist, lift. Crush, twist, lift. The mixture darkens from fawn to burnt umber, releasing an aroma like ancient parchment stored with dried apricots. Now the honey, not stirred, but folded in with a spatula of tortoiseshell, one stolen from a shipwrecked Venetian trader decades ago. The paste thickens to the consistency of sacramental wax, trapping the cardamom's volatile oils in sweet amber prison. This buried spice will age in a blackened cedar box for 99 days, the same duration as an imperial mourning period. Only then will Elias blend it with distilled rose water for the perfume called Basilisa, worn solely by those who stand closest to the throne. The ledger opens to a page stained with myrrh. Here, between a sketch of Scorpio's tail and a smudged prayer to St. Catherine, Elias writes, barley from Nicomedia's last drought year, honey stolen by monastery bees from Judas trees, the paste dreams in darkness until the swallows return. No client will ever read these words. They are written for the ghosts of future perfumers. Beyond the workshop's main chamber, behind a curtain of braided rushes, lies the storeroom Elias calls the womb of scents. Here, in the perpetual twilight of oiled parchment windows, time pools like undisturbed honey. The air hums with forgotten humidity, part river delta, part monsoon cloud. As we step carefully between vessels that have waited decades for their moment. To your left, a squat Egyptian hydria holds not wine, but Nile floodwater collected during the dog star's rising. Its surface swirls with minuscule golden particles, not silt, but flecks of Nubian gold leaf added by some long-dead perfumer to capture Ra's favor. Elias will use but 3 drops to stabilize violet absolutes, though some say the pharaoh's priests once drank such water to dream of the afterlife. Now observe the true treasure, a Kerala monsoon trapped in glass. The merchant who sold this to Elias swore the rain had fallen through cinnamon trees during a solar eclipse. The bottle sweats slightly even now, its contents releasing sporadic bubbles like a sleeping serpent's breath. When shaken, never stirred, it produces the exact scent of wet tree bark under tropical noon. The ledger here is different, written on vellum scraps nailed to the walls. One reads, year the Varangians brought Baltic amber, mixed 1 part floodwater to 12 parts monsoon. Result, tears, but no scent. Another bears just 3 words. Try again, younger. These are not failures, but conversations across generations. In the violet hour before sunrise, when even the street cats still doze in doorways, Elias prepares his most sacred tool. From an ivory tube lined with raw silk, he withdraws the hummingbird brush, its handle carved from Atlantean cedar, its bristles formed from the primary feathers of a Cuban emerald hummingbird. Watch how it glides across the surface of the newly blended rose attar, lifting just 3 droplets that tremble like liquid stars. This is no ordinary application. The brush moves in deliberate patterns. First, a clockwise spiral over the pulse point to honor the sun's journey, then 3 vertical strokes, 4-3, the Trinity, and finally, just as the first ray of light strikes the workshop's threshold, a single touch behind the ears where the soul is said to listen. The effect is immediate. The perfume unfolds in stages, first as sharp bergamot, then honeyed rose, and finally as something uncannily alive, like walking through a sun-warmed orchard where every fruit hangs at perfect ripeness. Only 7 people in Constantinople own vials of this ladder-to-heaven essence. The patriarch uses it to anoint Easter candles. A widowed empress wears it as her sole adornment. And blind old Simeon the Stylite claims its scent allows him to discern truth from lies, which is why ambassadors are required to wear it during treaty negotiations. Elias records today's batch with unusual brevity. Rose oil from Ghazni, moon in Virgo, the brush shed no feathers. Beneath this, a single drop of the perfume seals the entry, its chemical kiss preserving the ink for centuries. Beneath the workshop, in a vault lined with blocks of pink Himalayan salt, the finished perfumes enter their final slumber. Here, in air so still that candle flames stand unwavering, row upon row of glass flasks rest on beds of unspun wool, some snowy white, others still bearing the yellow tint of lanolin. Observe how Elias runs his fingertips along the shelves, pausing when one vessel answers with a nearly imperceptible vibration. The most potent mixtures, those containing ambergris or distilled night-bloomin' cereus, are swaddled like infants in wool shorn from lambs unborn. This is no superstition. The keratin fibers regulate temperature with uncanny precision, while their natural oils prevent evaporation. But the true marvel are the 3 flasks that sing when touched. Their glass contains powdered meteorite iron, and their contents, a blend of desert lilies and Arctic lichen, seem to pulse in time with the geomagnetic storms that paint the northern skies. The vault's records are written in silver point on slate tablets. Today's entry reads, "The Basilissa batch trembles at noon prayers, added 2 drops of comet wine to comet." Beneath this, a charcoal rubbing shows the position of Jupiter on that date. For perfumes, like tides, answer to celestial forces. On the workbench lies a relic, a Venetian glass flask crusted with age, its contents solidified into amber shards decades before Elias was born. This is the widow's tears, a jasmine attar last worn by the ill-fated Empress Theodora in 1042. Watch now as Elias performs perfumery's most sacred resurrection. First, a single drop of oil pressed from fresh jasmine blossoms, harvested from the same Peloponnesian valley as the original. The hardened perfume shudders, releasing one trapped bubble that rises like a soul through syrup. Next comes warmth, not from fire, but from a polished moonstone heated between Elias's palms and laid against the glass. Slowly, impossibly, the crystals begin to weep. The scent that emerges is time itself, top notes of Byzantine church incense, long extinct recipe, middle notes of Theodora's favorite honey cakes, made with Hemetan honeybees now gone, and a base note historians would kill to smell, the unmistakable salt and iron tang of the porphyry chamber where emperors were born. The ledger entry is uncharacteristically emotional, resurrected under Taurus moon. The ghost scent of violets lingered near the east window afterward, added one drop of myrrh to anchor it to this world. Beneath this, a single jasmine petal is pressed into the page, its veins still visible after a century, like a map of forgotten trade routes. Behind the workshop, half buried in wormwood and purple sage, lies the garden of failures. Here, in crooked terracotta pots, perfumes deemed ruined by human standards undergo their secret metamorphosis. See how Elias lifts the lid from a jar where last summer's rose attar turned to vinegar, now teeming with iridescent bubbles that pop with the sound of distant fireworks. These are no ordinary failures. The pot labeled Dragon's Spit holds a sandalwood infusion that somehow birthed flecks of gold leaf. The Widow's Kiss jar contains a lavender batch that now smells unmistakably of fresh-dug truffles after lightning storms. And in the darkest corner, a cracked amphora oozes something Elias calls the blood of forgotten saints, a failed myrrh blend that somehow gained the scent of warm parchment and dying roses after 20 winters underground. The ledger here is written on birch bark with iron gall ink that bleeds purple in rain. Today's note reads, "Added spoiled citrus oil to the ant graveyard pot. They're building bridges of their bodies to reach it." Beneath this, a pressed centipede serves as both warning and ingredient list. On the first morning, when breath hangs visible in the workshop's yard, Elias kneels among the failure jars with his harvesting tools, a silver sickle for scraping mold, a porcupine quill for lifting delicate sediment, and most curious of all, a magnetized needle to test which elixirs have become conductive. Watch how he works by touch alone, his fingers reading textures like a blind scholar deciphering braille. The harvest yields surprises. The dragon spit now separates into 3 distinct layers: emerald dregs that taste of mint, a middle stratum that sparkles with pyrite dust, and a surface film that evaporates if exposed to moonlight. From the Widow's Kiss amphora, he draws a single thread of perfume-soaked spider silk, longer than a man is tall, its strength enough to suspend a glass vial without snapping. The ledger today is written on the back of a discarded choir manuscript. Elias's note is uncharacteristically brief. Autumn equinox. The spoiled violet batch has learned to mimic human sweat when agitated, kept 4 drams in a raven skull. Beneath this, a single black feather is trapped in the wax seal, its barbs perfectly preserved. In the deepest hour of the winter solstice, when even the rats still their scratching in the walls, Elias blends his final masterpiece, not into a flask of glass or silver, but into the hollowed-out heart of a lightning-struck oak. Watch now as he combines 7 drops from the failure jars, each measured by the trembling of candlelight rather than by volume. The mixture swirls counterclockwise, defying its own viscosity. This is no scent for mortal skin. Applied to flesh, it would blister. Inhaled directly, it conjures visions of libraries burning in Alexandria. Yet when daubed on the forehead of a stone icon, As Elias does now with a brush made from his own gray hairs, the wood drinks it greedily. The air thickens with something older than language, the scent of time itself compressing, of scrolls unread for millennia briefly exhaling. The ledger's final page holds only this: For the God who remembers what even the olive trees have forgotten, may it linger at the threshold. No signature, no date, just the imprint of a thumb smudged in myrrh and wood ash. And so the perfumer's art completes its circle, from flower to failure, from failure to revelation. May your own dreams tonight carry whispers of iris root and monsoon rain.